We're going to call the meeting to order. We'll start with a pledge. We have 2.2, welcome and introductions, starting with Dr. Gilman.
Randy Gilman, Assistant Superintendent, Elementary.
Tammy Cardona, Assistant Superintendent, Secondary.
April Meckel, Board Member.
Jim Shalhoub, Director.
Bob Grunwald, Board Member.
Judy Turney, Board Secretary.
John Stewart, Chief Financial Officer.
Jacqueline Fitzpatrick, Executive Director of Curriculum and Instruction.
Kelly Brock, Assistant Superintendent, Human Resources.
Michelle Chamberlain, Director.
Crystal Hargis, Vice President of the Board.
Nisha Patel, Superintendent.
Judy Smith, Board President. Go on to 2.3, approval of the agenda for May 18th, 2021.
I make a motion to approve agenda.
Second, Chamberlain.
And all in favor?
Yes.
Okay. Anyone oppose? Okay. 2.4, approval of the meeting minutes for May 4th, 2021.
I'll make a motion. Meckel.
Second, Shalhoub.
And all in favor?
Yes.
Okay, that passes. 3.1, superintendent comments. Dr. Patel.
Good evening, everybody. Nice to see all of you here today. So as you know my morning drives usually to and from work is about 35 minutes, so I do a lot of reflecting at that time. And I was driving to work today and I said, I can't believe it. We are at our final board meeting for the school year while kids and staff are still in session. For a while, it didn't think like we were even going to get there. We couldn't see the light at the end of the tunnel, but I cannot believe we're here. And of course, just like this year has been, of course, we had another curveball thrown by CDC in terms of the masks and if you're vaccinated. And so I know we've gotten quite a few questions from the community. I know the principals are getting questions on what do we do as a school district with the CDC guidance that has come out. And just like we have done the entire year, we follow our Jefferson County Health Department's recommendations, which is aligned to the CDC. And so we are going to continue with our mask mandate for the rest of the school year. And CDC also sets that when operating schools, one of the things that has kept transmission low is the mitigating factors, and masks is one of them. So I know that, we have individuals from all walks of life who agree or don't disagree with that, but we believe as a school district that this is what's good for us in terms of making sure that we can continue to stay strong and finish strong for this school year. One of the two things really if we were to even look at making masks optional that we need to figure out solutions for is, first of all, just the susceptibility challenge that brings about, because we do have kids that can get vaccinated right now, however, 12 and above, and however, those number of students that are vaccinated is low right now. And we're hoping over the summer and by the time school starts that number can increase so we can help with that challenge. And then the other challenge is just operational wise. You have adults that may not have masks on because they're vaccinated, but then you have kids who have to have their masks on because they're not. So that's something that we also need to work towards and what that looks like in the fall. So for right now, till the end of the school year, we're going to continue to operate with the masks on. So I just wanted to make sure I addressed that. And then a couple of good, switching gears here, I do want to congratulate Don Earl Early Childhood. They were recognized as a National School of Character. That's the second time that they have done that. So congratulations, National School of Character is huge in the middle of a pandemic. So huge kudos to them. And in addition to getting National School of Character, they were recognized as getting a gold standard with all their work with PBIS. So they have just been outstanding, and just like all of our schools. So I wanted to make sure I give them kudos. And then also, we noticed right outside Rickman, the garden club came in. I think it might have been last weekend, but it looks phenomenal. And they've done such a good job. And they always come up here and do a presentation, and they show us the pictures. And sure enough, they came in last weekend, worked hard, and made it look really nice. So I want to give them a special thanks as well. And that is, actually, one more thing I do have. I always, I want to make sure I thank all of our teachers for this outstanding school year. You've gone above and beyond. Every single staff member has. Our nurses have done so much for us. We relied on them, and they came through for us. Our bus drivers, our kitchen staff, you name it. I want to make sure I don't miss anybody out, but please know that from the bottom of my heart, I truly, truly appreciate all of you, and I want to give you kudos. And I am going to take the next couple of minutes and truly thank someone that I hardly ever thank, because I take them for granted, because that's what you do, and that's my cabinet. You guys have been phenomenal for every year I've known you, but especially this year. Kelly, you are probably the most organized and thorough person I know. You have detailed answers for everything, you research everything, and sometimes I wonder if you sleep or not at work. So thank you for all that you've done for supporting me personally as your superintendent for the past 5 years. Declan, I do not know anyone who is smarter than you when it comes to curriculum, instruction, and assessment. I truly believe that. Thank you for helping us. Thank you for helping our kids in our district with all of the work that you have done in the past 5 years. And I've been humbled, and I know that you have a huge reputation in this district, in this area, in the counties surrounding us with your expertise. So I wish you the best of luck with everything that you do. John, you started in the middle of a pandemic. You came in, you didn't know anybody, and you didn't see anybody because nobody was around. Everybody was virtual or Zoom. Yet you came in, built relationships with individuals in the transportation, maintenance department, food service, you name it, all the departments under you, and you learned everything about this district, and you gave it your all. And you always do. You always, and we talked about this just the other day, you always come up with the answers if you ever have questions, and I really appreciate that about you, and you're always looking out for the district. So thank you for all your work. Dr. Cardona, you and I have been in this together for 5 years. When I think of you, I truly think of the word grit. You put in your heart and hard work in everything you do. And I know that there have been times when I've called you and you have taken it and run with it, any challenge that comes your way, especially with all of the graduation and everything that we did, not only this year, but every single year. So thank you for all of your hard work. And last but definitely not least, Dr. Gilman, I don't know if I have the words to explain to the entire community what you mean for this district and what you have done for me. You have been my confidant. You have been there for every single challenge that came our way, and we've been able to bounce ideas off of each other. You've helped me avoid a lot of challenges that you would see because you've been here and you know and just trust everything that I have done. So I appreciate you more than you will ever know. So thank you to the cabinet for all that you have done. That's all I've got.
3.2, Board Member and Cabinet Reports. Dr. Gilman.
Thank you for the kind words, Dr. Patel. Much appreciated. I'm going to talk a little bit later about some social emotional things, so at the elementary level. So I just have a couple items right now. Congrats to Don Earl for their accomplishments. That's very, very proud of them. Thank you to all the staff as we close out this year, or begin to close out this year. It's been a really, really intense year, and we've had input and extra effort from everyone, and that's the only way that we were able to make it through it. And then lastly, I want to mention 2 people that are retiring from the elementary administrator ranks. We have 2 elementary principals, Luann Domek, who's retiring from Londell this year, and Liz Anderson, who's retiring from Hamrick. And when I got my first admin job many years ago, I was the assistant principal that traveled to 3 different buildings. I went to Antonia, Londell, and Hamrick. And so I did that for 3 years, and I learned so much from these two ladies that are retiring, and I owe them a great deal of in terms of my growth in this profession. So just want to congratulate them on their retirement. I want to thank them for all of their years of dedication, and thank them for what they meant to me personally. That's all.
So first of all, thank you, Dr. Patel, for the kind words. I've learned several things from you, and I know you're going to do great things where you're going. We have a lot of exciting things happening at the secondary level, right? Busy, busy week. Last night we had baccalaureate for both Fox High School and Seckman High School, and it was a great service. And tonight, actually, Seckman High School is doing their awards ceremony. And then Thursday night, Fox High School will do their senior awards. And then, of course, we follow up with Monday is Seckman High School graduation, and then Tuesday is Fox High School graduation, all at the Family Arena. So exciting things going on. I want to thank our gifted teachers that are here. I know they're going to be doing a presentation tonight. And, you know, we oftentimes talk about all the different programs, and I think sometimes we don't give them enough kudos. You know, we think about all the supports we give for our students that struggle, and we also have to remember all of the great things we do for our students that we need to push a little harder. So I was lucky enough to have you guys in my building for a little bit, even though it was a short time. I got to see firsthand what you guys do, so thank you for all of the support you give our students and for the way that you have built that program, and we just are very appreciative for all the work that you do. That's all I have.
Well, good evening. Congrats to the seniors, and I look forward to being a part of graduation next week. That's going to be exciting. Congrats to the Seckman High School bands that all placed it this year with 1s and 2s, and some even for the 6th year in a row. So congratulations to them. And congrats to the 5 industrial arts students at Fox that won awards for making bookshelves and nightstands. What a really cool talent to succeed at there. And last, Michelle and I attended an area-wide Zoom for school board members regarding legislative advocacy regarding charters, vouchers, and curriculum this past Thursday. And we spoke about our next steps and the possibility of training sessions on how to communicate more effectively with our legislators. And we discussed how to get the main part of a bill passed without the radical attachments that get attached, the amendments that get attached. And we were reminded that the curriculum is based on standards, and there is not one source recommended by state standards, which is good news for us because that means that we at a local level are in control of this, so that was very reassuring. And it was great to be a part of the Zoom and to meet other area-wide school board members and to have an idea of their views and their thoughts and to see where other schools may be headed.
This has been an extraordinary year for all of us, for sure, and I think the thing that has impressed me more than anything else is the stamina that I've seen demonstrated by our families and our faculty and our school administration. This has been really, really, really tough, and the stamina has been great, and because of that stamina and that dedication, I think we've come through this even stronger than we were when we went into it, believe it or not. I think our students have, many have been able to take advantage of things that they otherwise couldn't take advantage of, and I'm really looking forward to the next school year, and one being maskless, hopefully, and one that seems to be semi-normal. And I just want to mention one other thing. All through this year, I would have my grandson come into me and say, Papa, Dr. Patel is on CNN and she's doing a report on COVID. And apparently CNN has a Dr. Patel that does a report on COVID. The good news is what she recommended was absolutely consistent with what you were recommending. So we got through that okay in that regard. But it's been a tough year, and I think that in the final analysis, we're all going to be stronger and better for it. And, you know, they say when you're going through a tough time, the most important thing is to keep going, and I think we've done that, and we've come out on the other end in good shape.
I would like to talk about a little bit of the problems of COVID and getting employees and bus drivers and students to school on time. And I'm fortunate to have 2 grandchildren in the district. The youngest one is at Fox Elementary, and I often get the privilege of driving from my home to pick him up to take him home. But as I watched the kids come out of that school that day, COVID or no COVID, they were happy, they were having fun, they were wanting to run back into the school and not get on the buses because they were having such a good time there. And it's just great to see our kids in that mode in such a tough situation. And I'm sure the teachers and administrators there have done a lot to promote that and foster that. And so I just want to give kudos to the staff and administrators there at that building for what they've done to keep the kids pumped up and on task regardless of COVID.
Mr. Stewart?
First, I'd like to thank Dr. Patel for her kind words. And just so you know, numbers geeks like myself, human interaction is not easy. So coming in the middle of a pandemic and being the only person in the office was pretty cool. Anyway, I do want to repeat a couple things, specifically mentioning the departments that I oversee and thanking all those people, particularly those in the transportation department, our food service workers, our custodians, our maintenance workers, and our office professionals for making this year work. It's been an extraordinary event, hopefully the only time in my life event, and yeah, everybody pulled together and did what they had to do to get things done and keep this district running, and I thank them all profoundly. I did want to give you a little update. We had a pre-bid meeting today for the additions, renovations at Antonia Elementary and Merrimack Heights. So the bids were advertised earlier in May, with the documents becoming available a little bit later. As I said, the pre-bid meeting was today. We're going to have contractor walkthroughs at both those buildings on June 2nd, and then bids will be due on June the 17th. And we'll have we're hoping to have a contract recommendation on ready for the July 20th meeting to proceed with those additions at those 2 buildings. So other than that, everything is moving right along.
So I just want to welcome all the gifted teachers who are here to make their presentation this evening. Thank you for being here at the end of a long day, at the end of a long year. And Mr. Shalou, when you mentioned stamina, I really want to thank the math teachers, the elementary teachers who worked on the math committee this year. We finished our final meeting for the school year this evening, and they're all planning more work days this summer to do more work and get more things ready. But we really have an excellent math pilot planned for the next year where we'll have the opportunity to vet the math resources thoroughly, and we'll have an excellent curriculum that the teachers have developed, and the number of hours that they put in at the end of long school days on days where everybody feels like they're a new teacher over again. I really want to thank the teachers who have put in all the hours to do that work. So thank you.
I don't have a report, but I want to say, of course, thank you, Dr. Patel, for your kind words. But I also want to add that you are the most talented leader that I've ever had the pleasure working for, and you do such an excellent job of being genuine and leading not only with your head but also with your heart all the time. And I admire you so much.
I second that. Very, very good. I just want to elaborate on what April and I, the Thursday night Zoom call, that was very interesting because there were a lot of, there were city board members on there, county, Jefferson County, and St. Charles County, so there was a wide variety. And And it is very important that we do talk to our representatives and we advocate for public education and let them know that, and be loud and be respectful, always be respectful, but never waver from our main focus, and that's if we're sitting up here on a public school board, we should be advocating for public school, and that's what all of us do. I'm super excited about summer school that's coming up for the elementary, and then the high school, the secondary with the grade recovery and the, I don't know what we call it, grade enhancement or grade improvement. That is
Continuous improvement.
what is it called?
Continuous improvement.
That is absolutely amazing. And I reached out to you today to make sure that we could, it wasn't the average grade, it was their, the new grade. That is so important because we're going to talk later on about social emotional wellness, and I can't even imagine if I was a senior, because I was not a rock star and whenever I was in high school, but I'm pretty sure I probably would be really not doing well right now. And for those kids who are not doing very well right now, hopefully they have an adult in their life that says, hey, you need to get to summer school. You need to either improve that grade or you need to do that grade recovery, so they don't have the anxiety, when they go back to school. So hopefully either they have an adult or there's a counselor or a teacher that's out there just, tugging on them to go. So just thank you so much for all that you're doing for our kids and for our district. Thank you.
I would just like to thank all the administration and the principals and the teachers and nurses and secretaries and food service and the bus drivers and the custodians and maintenance and our parents and grandparents for all their hard work and dedication. I truly appreciate everything that you've done this year. It's been an overwhelming year for everyone, but we've made it. It's almost over, and I'm really looking forward to next year. I've always been proud of this district, but this year I'm beyond proud of everyone for all their hard work. I also like to congratulate our seniors. I'm looking forward to graduation this week. I had an opportunity, I serve on the Jefferson College Board, and I had an opportunity to see some of our CAP kids graduate this weekend, and it's just such an amazing feeling to see them walk across the stage and know how hard they worked to get their associate's degree and their high school diploma, and just overwhelming. So I just thank everyone for all you've done for us this year. We really appreciate it.
Best wishes to Luann and to Liz as they retire. It's a fun time. I'm sure they'll stay busy helping. Congratulations to Don Earl. Last week we toured several of the buildings for secure entrances, and it was amazing to see the work that has been done and how Scott and the Ittner Construction Company have taken impossible situations and turned them into secure entrances and not interrupted the path of students through the building. And it was really exciting to see that take place. Been to a few year-end activities. April and Crystal and I came up to the launch of the balloons, hot air balloons for the gifted, and to the senior parade. Judy Turney and I went to one of the band concert at Seckman the other night. I wish I could go to all of the activities. There are so many. It's so exciting this time of year as we come to the end, and I'm just so thankful that the kids can participate in these things. Even if the parents can't be at everything, I'm just glad the kids are able to participate in the regular activities. And we've got to thank everyone for everything they've done. This has been a terrible year, and it has taken everybody from the first smile the kids see on the bus to the teacher or aide that's helping them out of their car at the elementary schools as they enter the building, those smiles they have. And there have been a lot of social and emotional issues. But I came to realize as we began talking and looking at this that we do have a lot of social and emotional issues that even impacted us before COVID, and it's greater. And so with C-6 coming, there are mandates, and so it will be a process that we'll be going through to incorporate and helping not only our students, but our teachers and principals as they navigate some of these situations. I'm looking forward to graduation and all of the awards the kids earn. I'm always so proud to see the second graders that I had as they walk across that stage. And so it's just a real exciting time of year. And I just thank all of the teachers, every employee that touches kids' lives for what they've done this year to help them. And we're going to move on to 3.3, patrons' comments. Dr. Gilman.
Yes, we have 2 comments this evening. I'd like to remind our speakers that problems involving a particular or identifiable employee and our students are reserved for executive session. There's a 3-minute time period allowed per speaker. A warning will be given after 2.5 minutes, and the vice president of the board will be the timekeeper. Our first comment will come from Stephanie Bearden.
Hi. All right. Hi, my name is Stephanie Bearden, and I'm here tonight to share with you about the positive impact the Fox C-6 Gifted program has had on my family. My husband and I have been raising our 3 children in the Fox C-6 school district for over 10 years now, and all 3 were enrolled in kindergarten through 5th grade at Sherwood Elementary, and now our oldest is finishing up her freshman year at Fox High School with roughly a 4.6 GPA, 11 credits towards graduation, and was just inducted into the National Honor Society. Our middle daughter is almost done with her last year at Fox Middle as an 8th grader, with straight A's in all advanced classes and a member of Honor Society and Character Council. And our youngest is a 6th grader, finishing up his first year at Fox Middle with straight A's in all advanced classes and was just accepted into Honor Society, and he was just in 4th grade last fall. Now, as my husband would say, some of that may be his genetics and our parenting, and we have been blessed with some great teachers, and I mean great, Judy Smith, teachers throughout their school year. But on top of all that, all 3 of our children have been fortunate enough to be a part of the Gifted program here at Fox, a program that their kindergarten and 1st grade teachers recognized early on would benefit them, a program that challenged them to continue to think outside the box and study things and subjects that only grew their eagerness to know even more. A program that let them flip to the back side of the paper and try the harder problems first. A program where they learned how to play cool games like chess and equations and do logic puzzles and solve mysteries. A program where they've built roller coasters and life-size cardboard boats and hot air balloons. They've coded monsters and bought and sold stocks, and a program where they were continually challenged. Being in the Gifted program allowed for our oldest to test into algebra her 6th grade year, which led to her taking 2 high school classes at Fox Senior High her 8th grade year. Being in the Gifted program also allowed for what started as a conversation for our youngest to skip a grade to become a reality. Bottom line is, being in Reach during elementary and challenged during middle school has allowed for our kids to be just that, challenged. It is my hope that in the future, there can continue to be those teachers and staff and administrators and school board members in the Fox district who recognize, just as there are those kids who may be struggling and thrive from extra help and one-on-one time, there are also those kids that thrive from being challenged and introduced to things that might be above their grade level. And I hope that those kids are able to become a part of the Fox C-6 Gifted program just as ours were and thrive just as ours have. Thank you.
Thank you. That's exciting to hear.
Our final comment today will be from Patty Dundon.
Hi, as you said, I'm Patty Dundon, and I've had 4 children go through the Fox district. When I was asked to speak about Reach tonight, I thought about things I probably shouldn't speak about, like when I was a child, and I had similar qualities to my kids, and I was asked to, I would get through my work, and then I would sit quietly and read a book or look at the wall. Or I was maybe not supposed to talk about when I was in math class, and I was told not to answer the questions because it was a, quote, a subject for boys, even though I had the high grade. I was never, encouraged to do STEM. And I didn't want to talk about the fact that now my kids are in their late 20s and that they're going to be looking for a school district to come to. And, the bottom line is that they're going to buy a house somewhere and that they'd like to have the same kind of programs. So it's good for the bottom line to have a really good Reach program. Didn't want to talk about all that, just how it affected my kids. My first child, James, was identified in 4th grade as a gifted child. And by then, he thought it was kind of weird. He didn't want to be nerdy or odd. So he chose not to do it. And now looking back as a 31-year-old, he sees what the other 3 kids got and what they benefited from. And he felt like he would have benefited greatly from that. He wouldn't have taken so long to figure out what he wanted to do when he kind of got lost in high school. He realizes all the benefits they got. The second child, Mark, did take advantage of it. He was identified in 3rd grade that he had ADD, and they tried medicine on him, and he felt that they had dulled his senses. And then he realized he joined REACH, and he was able to think outside the box. He was able to build roller coasters, and he was able to do things like build submarines, and it fostered all that interest. And what happened to him? He went to Rolla, top of his class, became a mechanical engineer, and now is a senior engineer at a local firm. Anyway, so it worked out really well for him. And then Katie, our 3rd kid, she had the same kind of thing. She was losing focus. She was, causing trouble in class because she was bored, and she joined REACH as well in about 3rd grade. And she said one of her favorite things was when she had to do a simulation of E. coli breakout at a state fair and learn about what happened there. Again, she was challenged in different ways. She went on to be a top of her class at Rolla, industrial engineer now. And last but not least, Colleen, who is closer to the program now because she's only in her 3rd year of high school. But I asked her about what she liked and disliked, and she said it was her favorite time when she would go to a REACH class. She would learn how to make cardboard boxes into boats, like they mentioned before. She felt like she could make mistakes in REACH class. She wasn't just the A student, and that she felt weird if she made an error. She could think outside the box and think amongst kids that were like her. She also found that there were kids that were from all different walks of life as a kid. There were jocks, there were music kids, there were all different kids that had all different advantages and different ideas. Anyway, and she's going on hopefully to be into Asian studies and international business when she goes to college. So my point is that there's lots of things that we need to help kids with. There's kids that need tutoring and subjects, but so do these kids. They need a place to be challenged. They need to find a place that they can be the problem solvers of the future, that they learn about engineering and medicine. And you can't present that when they're seniors in high school. You need to start it when they're young. You need to give them a submarine so that they figure out what that is that they want to build.
30 seconds.
Okay, if you encourage mediocrity for those that can give so much more, you're going to get mediocrity, not greatness. So in the end, challenge these kids. Give them find out what their unlimited potential really is. My kids did, and they're doing great. Thank you.
Thank you. 4.1, monthly financial report. Mr. Stewart.
So you have in front of you the financial report for the 10 months ending April 30th, and there's the familiar bar graph. And as you can see, we continue to trend ahead of where we were last year for sure, and a little more along where we were for a few years prior to last year. So as of the end of April, just for comparison purposes, we are roughly $3 million ahead of where we were last year with operating fund balances, so that's great news. If you look at the financial statement overall, so at 10 months through, that's roughly 83% of the way through the year. Our revenues are at about 88% for the year, so ahead, which we would expect because we get most of our tax revenue in the winter time, and our expenditures are trending well below that at approximately overall 72%. So things are trending well as far as the finances go for the district. To play a bit of the prognosticator, because I know in talking about our preliminary budget coming up here in a moment, if I were to guess where we were going to, or not guess, but educationally, or give an educated guess, I suppose, for where our fund balance would be for the end of this current fiscal year, I'm projecting we're going to be about $17.4 million, which will wind up being somewhere between 14 and just under 15% fund balances, which is an improvement over a year ago, and actually as a percentage, and a hard dollar figure, an improvement over the last few years. So hopefully that continues to work out. Any questions on the financial report?
I have a question. The net change, and for those who don't know, if anything's in a bracket, apparently that's negative. So that's for those who didn't know that. The 4.5 million, how confident are you, or how much of an improvement do you think is possible for that to get closer to zero or even possibly a positive number?
Are you talking on the preliminary budget
Yes.
summary.
Yeah.
Um,
Or are you not there yet?
I wasn't there yet,
Oh, okay.
but we can.
I was excited.
Any questions on the current financial?
Okay, go ahead and let's just go ahead and move to
Okay.
4.2.
Absolutely.
Sorry, John.
Preliminary
Absolutely.
budget summary. Maybe
Um,
you'll answer a question.
So, Ms. Meckel, if I can,
You
I'm
can
gonna-
explain it first.
Yeah,
and
I'm
then
going
we'll
to go through this, and then that will be the first question that I answer.
Perfect.
For you. So, you have your preliminary budget summaries there, and of course, it starts with budget assumptions. And you have the page of budget assumptions there. It's the first of the 3 pages that you have, and there's all sorts of information that goes into whether it's the calculation for state aid or if we're looking at assessed valuation. I won't read through those specifically, but I will point out a couple of those. So our weighted average daily attendance, I'm estimating to be a little over 11,200, and that's projected to be a little bit of an increase over this year, but not quite as good as it was 2 years ago. So I think we're going to get a little bit of a rebound. This is the second thing I want to point out is assessed valuation. Of course, that's very important when it comes to our tax rate and our local taxes that we collect as a school district. So generally in a reassessment year, the county gives us a preliminary number. They were not able to do that this year because they have not been provided the correct software by the state. But I'm projecting an increase in assessed valuation of approximately 5%. And if you look back historically at our change in assessed valuation in reassessment years, it's north of 5%. So I think 5% in a reassessment year is pretty conservative at this point, especially when you see, you talk to any realtors or real estate agents, or you look at what you can get for your own house. Maybe you've got it on the market. Prices are way up. So I think assessed valuation is going to be up about 5%. Of course, that number goes into calculating the estimated levies so that came in at a little over $4. Our district paid benefits in there are based on our current collective bargaining agreement, and so that's approximately a 4% increase on the district side of the benefits that they provide. All the numbers for the formula as well as Prop C funding, those are all coming from DESE and their projections for the coming year. Currently, they are projecting a state adequacy target, which is a big funding number that goes into the formula calculation at $6,375. That's the same number that we have used for this year, and it is expected that we will be fully funded for the coming year as well. Back to the, sorry, jumping around a little bit, back to the property taxes. I've budgeted, or this preliminary budget is considering a collection rate on taxes of 96%. That's a little higher than what this district has previously budgeted, but if you look at our collections over the last several years, it's been in excess of 96%. So I'm comfortable with a 96% there. The last two things that I really want to point out on numbers 10 and 11 there on the budget assumptions. Number 10, all requested budget items from departments and buildings are included in this budget. So in saying that, this is a worst case scenario in my estimation, okay? So this includes anything, anybody included on their budget sheets when they turn those in, okay? Number 11, no ESSER revenues or expenditures are included in this preliminary budget. So this is strictly locally funded, state funded, and the current federally funded programs in the district. So anything that we do as far as the impending ESSER funds that will be coming to the district it can do one of two things. It can help the bottom line, depending on how we allocate those ESSER funds. If we allocate them to existing programs and expenditures, or if we allocate them to new expenditures, it doesn't hurt the bottom line, but it doesn't improve things. It will help the district as far as programs and the like, but financially, it doesn't improve the bottom line. So I want to make sure that I pointed out those two. Overall, we're looking at this preliminary budget is approximately 2% increase in revenues, and expenditures are up about 2.42%. So expenditures are outpacing revenues at this point, and that's fairly common in school districts, as you see as you look at budgets, because inflation is inflation on the expenditure side, and there's not a great way to control that. But on the revenue side, we are limited by Hancock Amendment and other limiting factors to how much our revenue can increase. And basically, we get CPI every other year if we're lucky. And CPI for calculations this year is 1.4%. So I think, one other thing I wanted to, just a little caveat, we've done a lot of work, I should say Dawn and the rest of the department have done a lot of work, detailed work, in correcting some of the expenditure code lines. There was a big change with DESI a few years ago, and we're just continuing over this last year some of the cleanup. So if you try to compare this preliminary budget to the current budget or to the budget that was passed in June, it's going to be very difficult just because of some of the changes in the coding. But overall, the numbers are aligned very well when you look at totals. One thing I did want to draw your attention to is, this preliminary budget does have, as far as operations go, a deficit of $4.5 million. Mm-hmm. It has a total funds deficit of $2.5 million. So in just focusing on the operating, so I have built in there the beginning fund balance, my estimate that I've mentioned in my previous report on $17.4 million. That $4.5 million also includes, and we've talked about this throughout the year, transfers that we make as a district from operating to capital projects in order to fund some of those projects. And so this preliminary budget has a kind of a meet in the middle kind of transfer over to the capital projects fund, because I know the board indicated at one point they would prefer to have the fund balances and capital projects at the year end for the next summer's work, so basically a year ahead. And I think this is a good middle step towards that point. So so you see the $3.5 million transferred to the capital projects. If we did not do as large a transfer and only transferred enough to keep a deficit from occurring in the capital projects fund, our fund balances as operations go would be about $14.3 million instead of the 12.8 that you see there. By the way, the 12.8 is a 10.46% fund balance at the end of 2022. If we minimize that transfer to the capital projects fund, we would wind up with an 11.65% fund balance in the operating funds. If, on the other hand, the calculation for allowable transfer to capital projects is done by DESI, and it's been averaging around $5 million for this district. If we did the full $5 million transfer, that would increase, of course, the fund balances in capital projects to about $6.5 million, but it would drop our fund balance to about 9.3, and that would be 7.56% fund balance, which is below 10%, and we don't want to drop below 10% if we can help it in the least. And so it just for discussion and for presentation tonight, I kind of did a middle of the road thing because it helps to improve our capital projects fund balance, working towards that goal of having those balances available for future projects while not deteriorating the operating fund balances significantly. So that is how this preliminary budget has come together. And I do want to reiterate, this has everything in there that was requested. So this is, in my estimation, a worst-case scenario budget for 21-22.
John, on the ESSER funds, are there any supplanting restrictions that we're going to have to deal with relative to how we spend that money?
So on ESSER 2 and ESSER 3, there are specifically no supplement, not supplant issues. So no, we will not have to deal with supplant issues in those two.
Okay, I know that a lot of that money was, they were encouraging, I guess, districts to try to improve their ventilation systems and things like that. So we had several projects planned out there for ventilation. I would assume that some of those funds then could be used to, to complete those projects, and that would take some pressure off of our capital projects, monies that we'd have to spend, and give us an opportunity to maybe start building that reserve somewhat.
Yes, and yes, so if ESSER 2 funds, we're getting about $4 million, a little north of that. I think we still have a little under $4 million that we haven't specifically allocated yet. And the ESSER 3 funds, we're going to get somewhere between $8 and $10 million. We still don't have what those allocations are yet, and I'm hopeful we'll maybe have those this month, what those numbers are going to be. But yes, if we, of course, follow the allowable activities under ESSER 2 and 3, those heating, ventilation, fresh air, yes, is allowable expenditure. And so, yes, if we put those funds to use in the capital projects towards those kinds of projects, then those funds that would normally be in capital projects could be either used to build the capital projects fund balance or stay in operating and increase the operating fund balances. And I just realized I did not answer your question, Ms. Meckel, right offhand. So the $4.5 million deficit, I am by no means happy with it. It's a solid number, but it is a worst case scenario. I don't see it going worse than that.
Relative to the ESSER funds, you said we were allowed to transfer during the, into our budget up to, what, about $5 million out of the operating fund to take care of capital projects, correct? Without having to dedicate money to that, to the operating fund in advance that would lock that up.
Correct.
Okay, so I'm thinking, I guess the thing that is occurring to me with these ESSER funds, it looks like that we're going to have maybe an opportunity to really address some of the infrastructure issues with heating and cooling.
Yes.
And at the same time, take quite a bit of pressure off of our capital improvements that we've been funding out of our normal. And that's a perfect way to spend that extra money, I would think.
Yes. Yes, and the transfer, the allowable transfer of $5 million has nothing to do with the ESSER funds. That's not related. That's a separate transfer that DESI calculates every year based on various situations.
So the things that we purchased at the last meeting, where we dedicated that out of the ESSER funds, it was curriculum, the English, the social studies. Were those things purchased out of money that we don't have to include in this?
So anything to be purchased with ESSER funds will be in the final budget. It's just not in this preliminary budget. I didn't want to muddy waters with federal funds that are one-time funds.
So you didn't add the funds in, and you didn't take any of the money out either?
Correct.
I have a question. Were buildings asked to limit the supply budget, or was it just kind of whatever your school needs?
So the way we built the budget, so we give each building an allocation of money based on their student count in their building, and this is based on their student count from last fall, I believe it was. And so we give them that allocation of money and say, budget that for your building.
Spend the these ESSER 2 and ESSER 3 monies, do we have 2 years to spend it? Or is there a?
There are, and I've received some conflicting reports, but the ESSER 2 funds, the obligation window is through September 30th of 2022. Okay, so that's another year. And the ESSER 3 funds are going to be through September 30th of 2023. I did see a notation on a presentation from DESE that there was an amendment or something that changed those dates slightly, put them back by a year, basically, to 2023 and 2024. But I need to get clarification. But we do have a good amount of time to move ahead. And if we, as a district, if the board's ultimate decision is that we start allocating to, capital projects, things like HVAC and that, there's, as you all know, there's a lot of planning that needs to go into that, and then there's bidding that needs to occur, and so that time will go quickly.
Any other questions?
I have one real quick. John, you had said something about you were able to transfer money based for salaries. Trying to think of exactly what you called it.
Regards to the ESSER funds?
Yes.
Yeah, so, one thing that I had initially, so the ESSER 1 funds that we received a year ago, we allocated to salaries.
Okay.
And that improved our bottom line a year ago by roughly $1 million. So one of the thoughts that I had too was, it would be easy to allocate that to salaries again.
Mm-hmm.
And then you take the money that's budgeted for salaries and use it for capital projects or other things. Just because there's different red tape when you start buying equipment with federal funds, and it would be quick and easy as far as compliance goes with the federal government to say we allocated it to salaries for this period of time, and then you've already got that documentation and it's said and done with. And then you've got the fund balances then that you could allocate to other projects or other expenditures. But so the last webinar that I was in with Dr. Monses at DESE, though, is that they are reviewing whether existing salaries are acceptable, and so we're getting some conflicting guidance there. And so I'm hoping so. DESE releases a monthly financial memo around the 20th of the month. So I'm hoping like Thursday I'll have a little better information. I know that doesn't help tonight, but it will help for the June meeting. So, that's just one of the possibilities. If we use it for salaries, and that budget money is then available for other items.
So if we opted to do what you were just talking about, would you then include that in this budget? Are you trying to keep it
Yes.
separate? You would?
Yes.
Okay. And we were looking at 3.8 or 3.4, something like that?
On ESSER 2?
Yeah, yes.
We're, I have that right here.
Yeah, it's 4 million, but I was for the salaries. I think it was
Well, it was
3.8, I think.
that was a plug. It's whatever's left that has not been allocated. 3.9 on this latest sheet.
Okay. And
Yes.
then that would go into general then?
It could go into general, or it could be, that could be transferred to capital projects to use in capital projects for HVAC, whatever the board desired
Okay,
within the confines of the allowable uses.
right.
Can you clarify one more time where we are at reserves this year and where you see us next year?
So my best estimate at this point for ending fund balances operating at the end of this year is roughly $17.4 million. And that will be between 14 and 15% operating fund balance, which is an improvement over a year ago. Based on this budget, it would drop by 4.5 million over the next year to 12.8 million. at the end of June 2022, and that would be roughly 10.46%. If we take 3.9 million and add it into the operations, ESSER funds, and add it into the operations, and hold that, the district's 3.9 in reserves, that would improve that 4.5 by $3.9 million and bring you back up to very similar to what we're projecting at the end of this coming year, or this year, current year.
John, we had set a target in a policy relative to what our reserve would be. Could you remind me of what that target year was and what the target percentage was going to be?
Policy DIAA talks to fund balances. The target is 15 to 20% minimum operating fund balance. If the operating fund balances fall below 15%, it's I believe the board has 3 years to come up with a plan to correct that.
So it sounds to me like that this may be our opportunity to hit that target.
It's a possibility, yes.
Total, all ESSER funds added up, how much are we going to have? Your best estimate?
So, including ESSER 1 that we've already received and gone, or just 2 and 3?
ESSER 1 and all the way up to the last,
Okay.
the one that's the final one that's coming.
So we're talking about, including ESSER 1, 2, and 3, we're talking about somewhere between from 13 to $15 million.
Okay.
But we've already spent ESSER 1, correct?
We've already spent ESSER 1, which is 1 million.
Okay, so ESSER 2, if we,
Is 4.
okay, ESSER 2, if we took the money and applied it for salaries, and we could put, if we're allowed to do that, we could put that, could we put that in our fund balance?
Yes.
Okay. So, and
Yeah.
that's about 3.89.
Well, this is just our opportunity. We
Right.
set a goal, and I think, way things have worked out, we have an opportunity to meet that goal pretty quickly, and I think we need to make that a absolute priority.
And while I don't disagree with you, I just need to make you all aware, this is obviously one-time money. And it doesn't fix the long-term imbalance budget-wise.
Right.
And I totally understand that. But maintaining, getting that reserve up to a point to where we're not sweating bullets every November is, I think, important.
Yes.
Because it does really restrict the kinds of things that we're able to do and some of the ability we have to be a little more flexible with what we're trying to accomplish.
Right.
And I believe with the ESSER funds, every effort should be made to kind of spend it on one-time expenditures, but we'll be spending that money on one-time expenditures that we don't have to spend our normal revenues on. That should give us an opportunity to build that reserve, I would think. If we're talking that much money, I would think that we have the opportunity to do that.
Yes.
Okay, John, on the building supplies, can you give us like a percentage? Is that like 10% of the budget? How did you figure that this year?
That is a great question, Ms. Argus. Let me take a look here real quick. So supplies, and again, this is going to be supplies district-wide, not just building supplies, so it's going to include, maintenance department, transportation department, and the like. In this budget, it is $13.3 million out of total expenditures of $135 million. So, yeah, roughly a little under 10% in supplies. And just to refresh the board's memory from earlier this year, and I will be looking for a little direction for between now and June and what direction you want to go with this budget. But as I said repeatedly, and I don't want to sound like a broken record, but this does include everything that was requested. Last year at the very beginning, whenever we found out immediately in July 1 we were going to be losing $3 million, we reduced all supplies and all purchase service budgets by 5%. Gone. And that was just under $1 million. We restricted another 5% and pulled that out of all those supply and purchase service accounts and have set it aside. It's still sitting in our budget. We've not spent it. So that's another roughly $1 million. So again, if the numbers for this coming budget are very similar. So with a 5% reduction or restriction, we could shave $1 million off that 4.5 million. With a 10% or a 5% and a 5%, we could shave $2 million off that 4.5 million.
So do you mean last year we took 5% off of let's just say an elementary school or any school, you took 5% off of their supplies they
Yes.
purchase. So this year for this budget, did you put that 5% back?
Yes.
So it's back. So if we went back and we took that 5% back again, like we did last year, you would have that.
Correct. And to just to clarify, so it was a little easier this past year with not having, first semester having 20% of the students in, 40% of the students in 2 days a week, another 40% in another 2 days of the week, and no students in 1 day a week. It makes it a little easier not to have to buy supplies and some purchase services. Obviously, as attendance goes up and more kids are in, every day, more days, then, that expenditure is necessarily going to need to go up. Transportation goes back to 5 days a week. Food service goes back to 5 days a week. So those costs will naturally increase. So a 5% and a 10% reduction in restriction last year, or current budget year, is a little easier to maintain over the year than it would be in a year coming up where we're hoping to be in 5 days a week.
But you said you took 5 and then you restricted 5.
Correct.
So if you give the 5 back and still restrict 5, would that help?
That would be $1 million cut from the budget, or restricted from the budget. But that's just one of the opportunities to reduce this 4.5 million.
Anybody else have any more questions?
Are there other areas that you're looking at that can be reduced?
There are lots of areas that can be reduced. We can always
Are you
reduce.
going to give us a recommendation?
Well, so looking for a little, because this is a preliminary budget, obviously. So I'm looking more for a little input from the board on what they would like to see as far as the budget goes. Realistically, I do not think there's any way, just with existing budget revenue sources, to balance that 4.5 million. I just don't think there is. Can we reduce it? Absolutely, we can reduce that. If we, again, start eliminating requests from the budget, then that number comes down. And one of the things that we did to be a little more inclusive in budgeting this year, and I think I mentioned this before, we came up with these new spreadsheets for all the district administrators, the building administrators and department heads to complete and say, this is what, they had their target of what they, had as far as dollars per student, but this is what they need in their budget, okay? And so if, we go back and say, hey, we need to cut 10%, or we need to cut 5%, or you need to reduce it as much as you can, what can you do without this coming year? We get that input back, because I would think it was built with a little bit of a priority in mind, that, and they, if I'm building a budget, I know what if I'm requesting X amount of dollars from my department, I know what I gotta have, and I know what is a little that I can do without or delay.
Okay, could you send us a list of things that you're looking at so that we could look at those and try to figure out what we need to do with this budget?
Yes,
Please?
absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
John, one final question.
Sure.
So when the ESSER funds, the other ones come in, when we look at the activity that we have, where will that extra money show every month? Where will that money be?
So the
For
way,
example, if we're looking at for example, we're looking at a balance right now. Now, once that money comes in, if we haven't spent it, will it show up in that balance?
so the way the ESSER funds work is on a reimbursement basis, just like all federal funds. So we have to spend the money first and then request it back through DESE. And let me,
So it's money in and money out? then?
yes. Yeah,
So
it's on a
really-
reimbursement only basis.
Okay, I got
And we
you.
have to get a budget approved through EPEGS on DESE's website before we can even spend it. So we have to put out there, this is our plan of how we're gonna spend these ESSER funds based on X, Y, and Z, and get that submitted, and then they approve it, or, tell us to correct whatever needs to be corrected. And then once it's approved, then we can start allocating those funds and spending those funds. Once we spend them, then we apply for reimbursement, and those funds will show up in whatever fund we spent them out of. So if we allocate $1 million to a specific project at a building out of capital projects funds, those revenues will come back into Fund 4, the capital projects
Right,
fund.
right.
If we allocate it to salaries, it's going to come back into either Fund 1 or Fund 2, where all our salaries are paid from.
So when you spend the money, then it comes back in. And if you spend it on salaries, it comes back into that fund balance, which makes the fund balance look bigger because now the money is back in there. Even though it was money in and money out,
Yes,
the money is now, once it comes back in, still sitting there.
correct,
And so it makes the fund balance higher.
correct.
Okay.
Correct. And one other important thing, because you're going to see our total fund balance. So I said my estimation for the end of this year is 17.4 million. That's operating. We've sold $40 million worth of bonds, received $43.6 million.
So that's see that money.
That's revenue for this year. So our total financial at the end of this year is going to be positive by over $40 million in total. But you need to understand, those are bond funds that over the next 3 years, you're going to see deficits
Right.
that total that $43 million in capital projects.
And that money, though, won't be in our budget. It'll be under its own
It's going to be in a
category.
sub-fund of the capital
Right.
projects fund.
Yeah.
So ultimately, yes, it will be in there, but we'll be able to,
It'll be itemized.
yes.
Anybody else? Okay, moving on. 4.3, gifted program evaluation. Mr. Fitzpatrick.
I'm welcoming the Reach and middle school and high school gifted teachers to make this presentation this evening.
Hello, I'm Christy Robbins. I'm one of the elementary gifted teachers.
I'm Vicki Micko, and I'm a middle school gifted teacher.
Lacey Majors, high school gifted teacher.
So I'm not sure that we can say anything quite as impactful as the parents that spoke, but I will kind of share with you the nuts and bolts, I guess, of the program. On the screen, it shows the different services, the different delivery models for our services. So our elementary program that meets weekly at Simpson Elementary, 2 to 3 schools per day attend services there. Our middle school program, that's a daily elective course that the students take. High school is consult in a couple different forms. And we have 8 full-time teachers, and 1st through 12th service is 668 students. We also do some enrichment lessons with our kindergarten students. We do push in and do some of that with them. Okay, and this is just the number of students that we have identified and that we have serviced in the district. We do service private school and homeschool students, and we send some of our students to the PEGS program. We have 2 elementary students currently and 3 high school or secondary students that are currently there. We have 24 of those students are now in the virtual academy, and those 28 that are listed on hold, those students elected not to participate when we return to in-person services, but they're going to be returning to our active roster at the start of next school year.
So our middle school is 166 identified through our 4 middle schools, and 130 of them are serviced. A lot of those end up not being in the program because of it's an elective, so it's they are in band and character council and Spanish A and B and all those things. So, but we have 15% that aren't serviced, but down from 30 from 2018.
At the high school level, I service both Fox and Seckman High School. I service 146 students at Fox and 122 at Seckman. They are serviced voluntarily, so they can come get services as needed, and whether that's based on their own needs, their parents' wishes, or their teachers' recommendations.
And then, pretty much virtually every aspect of our program, as everything was this year, was impacted by COVID. So kind of to summarize how we addressed some of those things. One, just how we delivered our services for the elementary program. We were virtual for 1st through 3rd quarter. We started off the year with our hybrid students and virtual academy students attending weekly Zoom meetings on their virtual learning days. And then when we went to the 4-day learning, we kind of transitioned into all of our meetings being on Wednesdays. And then when we returned to in-person classes for 4th quarter, one of our teachers handles all of the virtual, Ms. Seavey handles all of the virtual academy students currently. That was probably the highlight of our year was 4th quarter when we got to return to the in-person classes. We were really excited when Dr. Gilman kind of brought that to us, that could we make that work, and he and Declan and Mr. Clark listened to all of our ideas and found something that would work for us, and so it's been great. It's amazing how exciting it can make teaching when your kids are in your students are in your classroom. We had them for 5 weeks, and it felt like a blink of an eye. It was so much fun. We did some changes to how we service them. Typically, there's one teacher for each grade level. We do a lot of teaming and mixed groups, but typically we're assigned one grade level per teacher. We grouped them by school instead, so we had 1st through 3rd groups from one building and 4th through 5th groups from another building, just to kind of limit the interaction. We revised the attendance days, so less schools and less students were in attendance each day. And then our 1st grade services didn't start until 2nd semester. That was another impact. Identification, we handle all the elementary program handles the testing for the district. So typically in each year in the spring, we have a testing cycle for 1st through 8th grade. And then when that's completed, we do a 1st grade testing cycle. So none of that was completed at the end of spring 2020. So when we came back to school, we had to kind of modify those timelines. We had a lot of students that had been recommended that were virtual, so making arrangements to get them tested or moving them to a future testing cycle, those kind of things took place. So it was actually very fortunate for us with the virtual classes that it gave us time to catch up on all that testing. We modified our screening guidelines, so typically the students have to have specific achievement test scores to be eligible for testing, and so we waived those for this year just to kind of accommodate for any learning loss. And when we did our spring testing cycle, we for our cognitive abilities test, we used fall norms instead of spring norms to pull. And basically, if the students scored the 90th percentile on that test, they move on to the individual IQ test. So that pulled a larger number of students to the IQ, and then a larger number of students qualifying as a result. And then our curriculum, we had to make a lot of changes to our curriculum. the virtual, to accommodate the virtual delivery model. So our major unit for first semester, we did a second through fifth grade unit spaced out. And the CER is our claim evidence reasoning, and that's kind of how we design our curriculum. So we worked together on that and created a unit that would work virtually. And it was great, and it was really exciting for us to design new curriculum, and the students were very eager initially, and as the fatigue of virtual learning kind of came about, by the end they were ready to move on. So for our second semester, we designed it more like, we have these minor classes that we teach, and the students, those are like student choice classes. So we kind of designed it more like that, and they were 3-week rotations. So each grade level was gonna rotate every 3 weeks to a new teacher. One of us had like a topic we were teaching, and we called it mini unit extravaganza. So then they had like each, at the start of the 3 weeks, they would have a materials packet that was delivered to them, and then they would do their 3 weeks with that teacher and then move on to the new topic. And when we went to in-person for fourth quarter, we had all those materials and supplies ready to go. So we continued that rotation with the in-person classes. So it was exciting for me because I get to work with the first through third grade, which I typically don't do. So it was exciting. And then this is just our goals for our academic potential, maximizing academic potential. Those are there. Just we want to try to get our students to achieve, at the highest levels possible. We want them to identify the talents that they have. We want them to pursue those challenging careers. So that's kind of the emphasis there. It has emphasis on STEM. When Ms. Dundon was talking about her kids, and she said high school's too late, it reminded me of a quote, and I don't know where it was from, but it basically was like you gain or lose a scientist by 8th grade. We kind of believe in that. So we really focus heavily on those topics. And then our affective needs with our trying to provide social and emotional support for the kids, for the students, we do that. A big part of that is peer relationships. A big part of it is, if something's easy for them, things are very easy for them, so when it's not, to kind of save face sometimes or avoid frustration, they back away from those challenges. So we purposely put them into those situations to try to, show them that they are capable, what they really can do, and to kind of have them empathize with their peers who feel that way on a daily basis with the regular ed curriculum. So. And then these are just some photos of some student work that we did. The one is a blueprint. Part of our curriculum is the engineering design process. We do a major unit that is like an in-depth investigation with a culminating project that goes along with that. They've gone through all the steps. And then in our minors, we kind of, focus on one step individually. And this is the plan stage for, I forget, Ms. Penley, what were they doing here? Do you know which building here is it? What story it was from? I'm sorry. For third grade. So third grade, it was Humphrey. They were trying to help Humphrey do something. So that was their plan for that. And then they did Ms. Leaders did rockets with them, trajectory physics. And so the CER was the claim evidence reasoning. So they had to make a claim about, do some research and look at their data on launch angles, flight path and launch angles. So that's what that was. And then our engineering design process, these are just some of the activities. We wanted to throw the roller coasters in there as a kind of a tribute to Ms. Hargis. We inherited that unit from her, and it's been awesome. Actually, when Ms. Penley and I, neither one of us were sure we wanted to do that, so we did it as a team, as one of our co-teaching units, and we actually ended up both loving it, so it works out great. We do it together, and then Ms. Leaders and I also did a team thing with wind turbines. And then this is more, a couple of years ago in the summer, we went to STEM Pact. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it's a summer PD at Washington University, and it was an amazing experience. We went there, and there was a lot of the things, the way it recommended teaching were things that we were doing, but it gave us an opportunity to kind of have that 2 weeks together to, I guess, look at what we were doing and look at what we were doing in common and kind of bring that back. And we really worked on our vertical alignment since then.
It's, we have common language that we use with the students. It's improved our student assessment. It's allowed us to see growth with the students, so we were really thankful for that experience. And one of the things, the Bloxels game, we got to meet. It was like a startup company in downtown St. Louis. We got to go visit with them for that at STEM Pack, so that was a nice experience.
Okay, so for middle school this year, we usually do a whole lot of hands-on stuff, and so we couldn't really do that at first. So we ended up doing financial literacy and focusing on the stock market. We did the stock market game. We've done that in the past, but this year it was really great. And we had 2 teams that ended up in the top 10 out of about 300 teams. And the top, like one of the teams they won, this is like early on, not even early on, but about 2 weeks before the end. And that top team there, Stock Sandwiches, they ended up having over like $24,000 in just under 2 months. So if you need some stock tips, I know some 8th graders that can help you out. The funny thing is they did actually buy GameStop, but not when it was like, booming. So like when they came back from Christmas break, I was like, oh my gosh, guys, did you see what your stock has been doing? And so we had a whole conversation about that too. So, and how shorting works and all that. So it went well into something else. And then we were able to, second semester, we got microbit kits. They're programming kits for every single one of our students at home and in-person students. And we have been building all sorts of fun things. And the coding has been phenomenal. And our kids have been working with it. So you can see some of the kids are building monsters and making them move. And it's not just on the screen, but then like that physical computing side really does up that challenge, because when you can't get the cardboard thing to do what you want it to do, now you're having to really think through and problem solve. So those are some of the things that we've been working on this year. And then hopefully next year we'll be back to our float your boat tournament. So, and unfortunately I heard that Jefferson College may not be able to host us this year. So if anyone knows of a giant pool we can invite about 160 middle schoolers to, then we would like to do that for next year. So, but the basic idea is we work on engineering design, similar to what they do in REACH. We carry on that. And then they work on that during the school day. And then when they get to ours, we throw this challenge to them. It's basically like, here's this cardboard, here's this amount of duct tape, and you have to build a boat that you're going to have to actually get in and sail across and like float it all the way to the other side, switch people, and then go back. And if whoever can do it the quickest wins. And it's a very fun day. So those are just some of the things that middle school has been up to.
And I can attest to what both of these ladies have said. I'm in the middle school and at the high school, and I have a daughter in the elementary program. And I'm one of very few people that was lucky enough to even go through the gifted program here at Fox from beginning to my time when I graduated from Fox High School. So not only as a teacher, but as a parent of a gifted child and as an alumni of the gifted program, I bring a very unique perspective to this, which is why I have a passion and love what I do. So I serve the high school students at both Seckman and Fox High School, and with my work there, my work with the students at Ridgewood Middle School, and my work with the 8-GAP program, that brings my tally to about 300 students that I look out for and look over. So I'm at both high schools 2 days each week, Monday and Tuesday at Fox High School, and Thursday and Friday at Seckman High School. At Fox High School, it's serviced through a resource room model. So just like we have a resource room for our special education students, we have a resource room for our gifted students. They can come during their academic lab time to receive tutoring help, social emotional learning, support, also college and career readiness planning and support, as well as any other social emotional needs that they may have. So we deal with a variety of topics. The one thing that I always preach coming into that room is that it's a safe space and that we are a family and we support each other. So we have students of all grade levels from all varieties of backgrounds, supporting each other, helping each other, teaching each other, saying, oh, I went through that same thing, let me help you. So I really foster a sense of community and family and development. At Seckman High School, it's a little different, as their day is different. Their ACT Lab system is set up differently. So at Seckman High School, it's really about building relationships. So I focus by pushing into all the core classes at the freshman level to build those relationships with those freshman students so that on their ACT Lab day, they have one ACT Lab day when I'm there on Fridays, they do get to come and visit with me. And they can ask for tutoring help, they can ask for social emotional help, they can ask for college and career planning. We've done a lot of that this year as my first group of students are now juniors, and they are making their binders for their summer college visits, and they're making their plans of how many more times do I need to take the ACT till I get the score that I want, because apparently a 34 isn't high enough. And so that's what we're doing at Seckman High School. So really it is about building relationships, and some students I'm lucky enough starting with them at Ridgewood at 6th grade and then following them all the way up to senior year at Fox. That's a 7-year of their academic career. And a lot of these students, having lived in the community and gone to all of the Fox schools for many years, I do have relationships with many of their relatives, and so I do feel at home. They feel at home discussing things with me. We are very much a family. So we take what they've done, all the hard work that these ladies have done, and now we get them to when they've hit that brick wall and they get to that uncomfortable place, and we teach them, okay, now we're out in the real world, how do we fix it? And so we have those crucial conversations, and we teach them those soft skills that they've never had a chance to develop, and they do it at a safe space.
That's good. And I did want to kind of add on to what Lacey said with the how important the high school program is. It was wonderful for Mrs. Bearden and Mrs. Dundon to talk, and just like there are those amazing success stories, there are those students that really struggle just because of some of the things that come along with giftedness, the way that they perceive the world, the way they perceive the curriculum that's introduced, and how their expectations they have for themselves, expectations other people have for them, and it can be a really daunting task for a high school student, a gifted high school student, and it's great to have her there to kind of look out for them and support them.
Do you have any questions?
Did you want to talk about any of your recommendations, or?
We can. I guess the only thing I would say, as far as the elementary, we have a amazing staff, long tenured staff that's been there. Ms. Hargis was there from the time that we started the center, and just kind of in looking forward, some of those really amazing teachers are going to be off to better things here real soon, and so we kind of just want to start making a plan for finding the right fit for people to replace that, so that the program can continue to maintain the standards that we feel like we've put in place with it, with curriculum-wise and servicing of the students. I know. I'll say for the secondary, I'll talk for. I know that one of the things, they have 3 teachers for the secondary level, and they're spread pretty thin. And I think obviously adding staff isn't going to be an option, but maybe looking at how to arrange those resources, what extra things they're doing and stuff, is there a way that we can maybe improve the services and maximize what we have to. I think a conversation with that would be great.
Just one comment. I think sometimes people don't understand that one of our most important obligations is to help every kid fulfill their potential for learning. And the truth is, there are some kids that have abilities that just the regular program doesn't get it done. And you had the PEGS program up there, and I know we have 2 students there. I don't think people understand exactly the level of abilities those kids have, but they truly are Einstein kinds of children, and we just really can't provide that kind of service to them in a regular program, and that's why the gifted program is so important.
Thank you, ladies. Thank you. Thank you for all you do. Okay, we are moving to 4.4, Curriculum Advisory Report. Mr.
So I just have a brief update for you from the Curriculum Advisory. You know the Curriculum Advisory is our committee of community members who provide us input on our curriculum process. So we're required by DESE to have community members provide us with input on our curriculum process, and this is how we accomplish that. This year, we've always had 3 meetings a year. This year, we tried to make those meetings shorter, and so we had 2 meetings in the fall and 2 meetings in the winter, and then 2 meetings in the spring, just so that we could have a 1-hour meeting, present all the information, and then have a follow-up 1-hour meeting a week later where people could ask questions and get as much information as they could from the process. In the board item there, you have both the board report, which I'm going through with you now, and all of the feedback that we have from the community members. When we have a curriculum advisory meeting, we always gather the feedback and provide it to you verbatim, so you have the feedback from the committee members there attached to the item. The biggest thing that we've worked on the curriculum advisory this year is keeping them updated on the math pilot curriculum process, and I went through with them the proposal that we have for the math pilot next year that's been in the weekend update that you've seen. But just to reiterate it here for the whole community, we will be piloting 2 math resources next year. Each teacher who pilots, so one of the products is called Reveal Math. It's from McGraw-Hill. The other one is called Big Ideas. It's from Cengage, which used to be called National Geographic. And we are also hoping to pilot a supplemental resource for kindergarten through 3rd grade called Number Corners, which is from Bridges. All the teachers in elementary school will have electronic access to all of the pilot resources. So every teacher who wants to access and use and look at the resources that are piloting, they'll have complete online access, as well as having an individual student account for every student in elementary school for both products. But then the physical resources that we'll be piloting, we get to pilot in 1 classroom per grade level per building. So that's 11 classrooms per grade level that will be piloting each of these resources. So that ends up being 22 classrooms per grade level that are piloting. So we have more than half of our elementary classrooms next year will be piloting a math resource, which actually allows us to reduce the cost next year for math implementation, because the pilot resources are free for a year. And so we will only have to buy math supplies for a little bit less than half of our classrooms for the non-pilot teachers. So the rest of the information in here is about how we structure the pilot. The teachers have also been working on writing the curriculum. This is a very small print, but this is a view of our 6th grade levels, K through 5th grade, scope and sequence by unit of how we've laid out the units for the curriculum. That's based on the pacing guides that we started with, and then revising on with feedback from teachers about how things went this year, and making sure that each unit was aligned to the Missouri Learning Standards, and that our assessments were preparing kids for mastery of those standards. We also gave them updates about things that have now come to fruition. In 9th through 12th grade, we had gone through a full curriculum review process and planned to adopt my perspectives for 9th through 12th grade, and we had to hold off on that with budget limitations. And at the board meeting last week, last time we met, you approved using the ESSER funds, and so that has happened now. And then we also have the plan to adopt a new textbook for 7th and 8th grade science, where we've allocated ESSER 2 funds for that will be expended sometime in the middle of next year. And then for social studies, the textbooks that went through the full review process and were planned to be adopted, we were able to adopt those, and that was all taken care of. And then the other things that we review with our curriculum advisory are requirements for Title I, Title II, and Title IV, where we ask the committee to provide us feedback about those allocations, and that information is included in the presentation also. But I don't think you need to hear about that from me this evening. I'm happy to take any questions. There is one item, an action item on the board this evening, where the Number Corner supplemental resource that the K through 3 teachers wanted to implement. When I went back to the vendor for that company and said, we're not interested in adopting your whole program, but we would like to look at your supplemental resource. How could we do that? They said, well, we don't do pilots, don't do free pilots for partial resources. But what we are willing to do is allow you to use the resource for a year, provide you with the resource for a full year, and defer the payment of that until the following year, when you have the budget allocation for the full math adoption. So they're allowing us to use the resource for a year to determine whether we want to adopt it across all classrooms, all those K through 3 classrooms, and that allows us to make a deferred payment and include that in the budget when we're budgeted to do the whole math adoption.
The slide right there says only need to add one class set of government books for Seckman High School.
So we're talking
Did
about...
we already do that?
That's it. What you
We did that.
approved that
Okay.
last time. So between the resources we had for free from piloting and the fact that all our students have Chromebooks now, we can buy the online subscription so every student has individual access even when they're at home, and then each classroom has a classroom set of the textbooks for when the kids are in the classroom. And the only thing we had to add, the only physical resource we had to add in that last purchase was one classroom set for Seckman High School.
Declan, as you go through this process, and I know it's a arduous process for sure, starting out with that process, what kind of data do you use to determine how well our students are doing in mathematics and what areas they have weaknesses in? And then how do you go about matching the materials to address maybe the weaknesses that we have in a program, or at least maintain the strengths that we have in a program?
So when the map test is fully implemented and isn't in a field test year,
Sure.
we get data that gives us item analysis reports that allows us to take every item that was on the math test and look at what percentage of our students mastered each of those items, and that yields for us areas of strength and weakness, and we can look at where do we really need to target to make sure that we're growing our program. So we look at the item analysis reports from the map test, and what that yielded for us the last time we had good data from that, which was 2019, is that we really needed to focus on number sense and complex problem solving, especially the technology enhanced problem solving questions that are on the map test. And so we included that in our specifications. When we made the list of things that we were looking for in our resources, we included number sense, complex problem solving, and the technology enhanced components in what we were looking for.
So these two programs are strong in those particular areas?
Absolutely.
Okay, now, this is the next question, and this is a question that I've always had when it comes to piloting. Generally speaking, the school that pilots a program falls in love with it.
Yes.
And so you have two schools that fall in love with the program. So how do you decide in the end which program you're going to implement?
So there are no schools that are only piloting one product this year. This year, the buildings were allowed to choose whether they would have teachers in the same grade level piloting different products, so one teacher piloting big ideas and one teaching reveal, or whether they wanted both teachers in one grade level to pilot the same product, and then the grade level above that and grade level below that would be piloting the other product. So there's a mixed pilot.
Okay, so you've mixed them up in the buildings.
Mixed
That's
them
a
up
good
in the
idea.
building,
That was
and
a good idea.
teachers had choice over how they wanted to implement that. But we did say that you need to have a close neighbor who's piloting a different product. So either your grade level colleague is piloting something else, or the grade level below and the grade level above are piloting something else, so that you can
Okay,
visit
so you've completed the piloting process, okay? You got to make a decision.
Yes.
How are you going to make a decision that is quantifiable? How do you do that?
So the first thing we're going to...
And I'm asking this because
Sure.
I don't know how to do that. I don't
Yes.
know how to make that work.
Well, so we don't have scientific ways to say this one had a bigger impact than that one in terms of student achievement, because we can't control for all of the variables. There's just way too many variables about how that might have been implemented, and the biggest impact in your classroom is always going to be the teacher. So you can't unless you have the same teacher piloting the product, you can't make an achievement result. But what we will have is we will have survey feedback from teachers about ease of use and success with the standards. We'll have survey feedback from parents about what they think about what they've seen coming home, and we'll have survey feedback from students about their own experience with the product. And then the committee of teachers will be the people who make a recommendation about which one they think was best and which one has the best feedback from
So
all of
we
those
won't
groups.
have any standardized type of achievement data that comes back at that point in time?
We would not, most researchers would tell you that standardized achievement data in a pilot, there's no way to control, unless you're doing a controlled study where you're taking an individual, you've made sure that it's not a teacher effect, and you've made sure that it's the same time and the resource for the same, there's no way to generate an achievement result in 1 year that would be scientifically respectable.
Is there going to be a pre and post test that everybody across the board takes at each grade level just to see how it went?
So there are pre and post tests in every unit, and so
Right.
they'll measure the impact of the unit, but there's no
won't
way
be
to
at the
give them an achievement test at the beginning of the year, because at the beginning of the year you would be measuring them on things that
They
they
don't
haven't
know.
learned yet, and
Right.
then so there would be no way to do that.
In grades 3, 4, and 5, I know historically we've been pretty strong in mathematics.
Yes.
And I guess my concern is anytime you start changing things is you don't want to throw the baby out with the wash water.
Yeah,
And-
I would argue that the strength of our program in 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade is teachers. And the program isn't what generates the results. It's teachers who are using the best things they know that they have access to and doing it together. The instruction generates math achievement results. Programs just support teachers in doing what they do.
And I would agree with you 100% on that.
Jacqueline, don't we give the NWEA in the elementary grades to,
Yes, we do.
so we could look at that math data at the beginning, right? And then at the end?
We have not required schools to administer the NWEA 3 times a year. They have the option of administering it 3 times a year. We require that they give it once in the spring. But they have access to it. But we want to manage the amount of district mandated assessment that's required. But if that was the decision that was made, we would absolutely have the capacity to give the NWEA at the beginning of the year and the end of the year. But again, it would be very hard to make an argument that it was one resource or another that generated those kinds of results. Growth in a year, yeah.
Declan, what are the, okay, you're going to have one teacher pilot reveal and the other one big ideas in a grade level. What will if there's 3 teachers in the grade level, or 4, what will the other 2?
The other teachers will be using Go Math, which is the product we've been using in the past.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Thank you.
Thank you. 4.5, mental health and wellness. We've had some students, parents concerned about this, and a lot of teachers concerned about this. And so we're just going to tonight talk about possibilities, MSEP 6 coming up, mandates, and our board policy right now does not have mental health in our policy. That's going to be changing. So tonight we're just going to talk about what is available at each grade level or at elementary and secondary, and talk about what we do have, and then move forward in maybe adding to the committee that we have, and then evaluating what we need to add and what's possible. So Dr. Gilman, would you like to go first and tell us what happens at the elementary level and what resources are available right now?
Certainly, I've got a pretty good list compiled here, and some of this will go K-12. So Dr. Cardona and I tried to not be too redundant in our lists, but some of these items are K-12. First of all, thank you to our gifted teachers. As you heard from the parents that spoke, this is a support, right? This is a support for those gifted kids for sure, and ties right into that. That would be a K-12 example. We have classroom lessons utilizing social emotional curriculum. We have groups, families, tribes, flocks. These are all like different names for kind of the same thing. Buddies or partner classes, and these basically help kiddos make connections with students and adults in the building. We have partners, St. Louis Counseling and Comtree Counseling. That's a K-12. Behavioral health response is somebody that we partner with and sometimes utilize. We make referrals to Annie's Hope. Annie's Hope They specialize in bereavement. It's unfortunate when we have to do that, but they do a really good job for us. We have classroom counseling lessons from our building level counselors. There have been a ton of home visits done this year to help support families through this pandemic, and that includes, counselors and teachers and administrators making those visits. Counselors have small groups and individual counseling of students. At the elementary level, we have what's called the SST, which is our student success team. It's basically a care team of counselors, administrators, teachers, specialists, and they will intervene in both academics, and they'll also intervene on the social emotional side as well. Tier 2 small group interventions. Some of our counselors do like divorce groups and bereavement groups and friendship groups. All of those things help support social emotional. Restorative discipline practices. We have class meetings which tie into our character education program. We'll have student check-ins. Sometimes we'll have students assigned to a counselor, or they might even be assigned to a custodian. We have some great support staff, and sometimes just having students check in with those people is a really good support. We've had quite a bit of professional development on social emotional learning, trauma-informed. One of the ones I know about, there was a social emotional help for teachers to use with at-risk kids that was done through Ed Plus, which was pretty good. We've had book studies. Help for Billy was one of the books. Conscious Discipline was another one. And we have before after-school clubs, which unfortunately were virtual for about 3 quarters, but this 4th quarter we've gotten back to some of those, which have been really, really helpful. Some of our schools have a reset room or a meditation room or a sensory center where kids can kind of go and kind of get regulated and calm down. Gina and her crew, they create a virtual wellness center, which is a hub on the Fox website that you can visit. There's quite a few things on there. That's kind of in its early stages, but it's a really, really good start. We have staff and student check-ins. At the beginning of every year, we do a back to school event for supplies, which is kind of good for kids, so that's one thing they don't have to really worry about. There's been in-school fundraisers to help support families in need, breakfast club for at-risk students. And in the elementary setting, we're at kind of an advantage over secondary just because our structure naturally provides for a continuity of care. It's just when you have students with you most of the day, that just kind of sets up to create those connections. So just that structure at elementary kind of gives us a little bit of a structural advantage there. Our building improvement teams at every building, they're vital to supporting these needs. A couple of the buildings have implemented the second step, which is a social emotional learning curriculum. It includes a variety of materials and classroom lessons, take-home activities that fit perfectly within our district's character education initiatives. And this program, basically, it helps students calm down and kind of regulate their emotions. It helps them work through problem solving. And the STEP, the STEP, those letters are a mnemonic that stand for the S is say the problem. The T is think of solutions. The E is explore consequences. And the P is pick the best solution. So those buildings that have utilized this really found it to be very helpful. It creates a consistent approach to social emotional learning, creates a common language that students can utilize as they progress through the grade levels. So this is not a total list, but it's a pretty good picture of many of the things that are going on in elementary, and some of them, like I said, flow over to secondary as well.
Yeah, thank you, Randy, for making me cross off like 10 things on my list. So a couple of things just to piggyback off of what Randy was saying. For our high schools, so, as students develop in their age, one of the biggest things is building that relationship, right? You have to have a champion that you want to go to, or that students feel comfortable with an adult in the building. So, that kind of takes place in our ACT labs and our advisories, and we know we have room to grow in that, but that is that key person that you're seeing every day. working with students who are in a crisis situation. Unfortunately, at the high school and middle school level, there are crises that happen in students' lives. And so being that counselor or that teacher that is willing to step out and a place for that student to go, those safe rooms, I know I can always go to this teacher for this or to speak with them about a crisis situation. Just encouraging those positive behaviors through social emotional skills training. They do training with the students during their ACT labs and advisories. The counselors go in and they, I know at the middle school level, the counselors would pull students out and have those trainings with them. The SEL staff and student trainings, we do have, until COVID, we were having the social emotional learning with teachers. That was a focus of ours. And then, of course, we also did that with the students. Being able to identify those social and emotional skill needs. And then one of the big things that I use at the secondary level is NCADA. So the National Council of Alcohol and Drug Assessment. So when we have an issue with a student, we refer students to them, and they have been great working with the district. And it is at no cost to our parents. So it is a good community resource for us. And then being able to support families and providing students with brief counseling sessions at school. And sometimes this is just being able to meet their basic needs. Many schools have clothing closets, or we have a way to get gift cards for students when they are in need of some things. Group counseling, and Randy talked about this a little bit, but it is a little harder to develop those groups at the secondary level because you're pulling the student out of something they need to be at. But we have at the middle school level been able to run some groups, divorce groups, and things like that, grief groups. And then we do have our mental health coalition. When we have things that we've tried to deal with within the building and there's just a social emotional need that's bigger than us, we have a coalition of people and different resources throughout the community that come together and meet, and Gina Buhner runs that. And actually the virtual website, and JP, I don't know if you can just real quickly bring that up, because I think this is a great opportunity. This is accessible to anybody that goes to our website, and this has been developed by Gina Buhner with some help from some other counselors and Kelly Allen at Fox High School. But it's pretty cool. There are virtual resources there. There are helpful websites. There are different strategies that you can go in, and it gives students of different age levels different things. Sometimes it's coloring. Sometimes there are a lot of breathing techniques and things like that. And this is accessible, and this was really developed because of COVID and just there are just a plethora of information and things for students to do here. And one of the other things on my list is Fox High School actually has a reset room. And I know a lot of times people think of a reset room as an elementary thing, but if you're ever at Fox High School and you have an opportunity to go in and check this room out, it is the coolest thing. So it's been painted in kind of tranquil colors. It has music that students can play. And anytime a student needs to go in there and use that room, they can go in there, and it really just helps them remove themselves from maybe a stressful situation. And at first, I think people thought, okay, great, we're going to have kids waiting outside the door, right, to just find a way to get out of class and come sit in this room. And that has never been an issue there. Students respect that space, and they respect what that is set up for. So that is another way that they meet the need of those social and emotional students. And then using the tools to support students in need. So CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy, it's a way that counselors have been trained on how to sit and have conversations with students to talk them out of a crisis situation, teaching them how to respond to crisis situations. And then at our middle school, self-care and mindfulness. Fox Middle School has done a great job this year and focused a lot of things around the mindfulness for staff and for students. And they actually have this Ziploc bag full of things that they used for like stress balls and things, and every student got one of those. And actually, I was delivered one in my office. I think Dr. Patel, they brought you one too. And then obviously the PD sessions that we offer to our staff on the personal care, because while our focus is on students, we got to make sure that we're keeping our staff healthy as well, so that they can meet the needs of those students. Each day, the counselors come in, and I know Fox Middle School, one of the things when speaking with them is she does a mindful minute. So they start their day there just with a positive mindful minute of just, bringing themselves down before things start. And I think, especially at the secondary level, things can get started really, really quickly, right? And so what a great way to start the day. And then through our middle schools, one of the things that they started this year was, how are you doing Google Forms? So it's accessible on the website, and the student can just go in and fill that out and say, hey, I have this problem. This is how I'm feeling today. And something that quick can really be a great resource for students. Obviously, being able to make sure that we keep that communication open with parents. One of the things that our district also started was we have an at-risk assessment form. So if a student is using verbiage where a teacher or another student might be concerned about, let's say, suicidal thoughts, somebody can fill out this form, and then the counselor will meet with that student, and we have a form that goes through a bunch of different questions, and then we tabulate those to see where are our students that are struggling the most, what did we do to help them. So that's been a good resource for our district to use. And then EA Plus, that is another outside resource that we can refer families to when they need extra help, or they need some extra support. Each building has a problem-solving team, and a lot of times we think of, when we talk about the response to intervention in our RTI processes, we think about the academic side, but those problem-solving teams also deal with the will side, the emotional side of students. So there is a lot of talk and conversations about how do we help with that. And then just being trauma informed. At the secondary level, we've done several trainings with the teachers about how do you become trauma informed, because you have to be able to recognize that this child is going through trauma. And what does that look like? And then what is going to be the first response to that, and how do we help with that? I think that's pretty all-inclusive. Make sure I didn't miss out on anything here. One of the other things that I left off here was just being able to, we have great groups of kids at our high school, and we have great peers at the high school. So being able to use our character council, our student council students to help with that, sometimes they can intercede in things before it even gets to adults, which is another benefit at the secondary level because of the age of the students. So again, not all inclusive of everything that happens, but there is a lot that is being done to help support that. And there's always more that we can do, for sure.
Right. Well, it sounds like there are a lot of things that people are probably unaware of, and a lot of things that, one thing we might be able to do is get on the website specifically that people could drop down, just like your virtual wellness center. That looks really good. I want to go home and look at it and see what all is available there. But I think just people being aware of what is available also helps, because a lot of people just want to help themselves too. They don't want it. And that would be really good if we had a specific place on the website for just those things. I know we had some other board members that had some things they wanted to share. Anybody want to share some of what you have, or?
I can talk first. I love talking about this because, what do they say? Kids don't care what you know until they know that you care, and that's so important. And social emotional well-being is, especially at this time, we're seeing kids with more anxiety. Like last week, we had a child who was virtual and came in to school for a play date, and it took 20 minutes to get this child out of the car. And it's just that anxiety, and how are we going to address that in elementary, middle school, and high school? And I didn't know about the second, is it STEP or STEP curriculum?
It's second step, yes.
Okay, so that's maybe something that we can look at. I think I've been to several different presentations on trauma, and several years ago when Gina and all the other staff went to that same training, I was at that too, and it's just so much more than just being trauma and looking at trauma. It's about setting up the climate and culture of your building and your classroom, and making sure that every child that comes through that door knows that you care and that you are wanted to be there. But also, like you said, with the staff, that the staff feel valued and appreciated and that they want to come to school. I want every single kid, every single teacher and staff member to run to school instead of like, can't wait for the weekend. You know, I want school to be such a great place for everyone to go to. But I was just looking through this, and you know, the student gains from having a social emotional curriculum. You know, every kid's better socially emotional with their skills, improved attitude about themselves and others in their school. So when you think about social and emotional, social is how you deal with everybody else, and emotional is how you feel about yourself. And some other benefits of having a social emotional curriculum, positive classroom behavior, and then also, Mr. Shula, 11% gain on standardized achievement test is what can happen. But also for teachers, that you understand, 11% increase in standardized test. Boost test scores. Whenever you have this, whenever kids, you know, have been taught these skills. But also with teachers, whenever they understand, you know, what a kid is going through, or the environment that the child is coming from, then they kind of can understand, and they want to just support and be there for that kid. And this report says that teachers who go through it, they can understand and can effectively work with challenging students, and will actually stay in the classroom longer because they will learn how to work with those challenging students. So I'll just get to what I think we should. I would just love for our district to have a social emotional curriculum in grades pre-K through whatever high school. And then I would also like to look at our current practice and our interventions that we currently are using. For example, our resource officers at the middle school and high school, how are they positively affecting children? And if they are doing a great job, and then if they're positively affecting them, that's great. And then if we can see improvement, like by going with a counselor that is focused on mental health, or a social worker that is focused on mental health, maybe go that direction. And then in closing, the last thing I want to say is it is so important that we hear from our students. And I want to know what it's like to sit in 203 in Fox High School. I want to know how to make our learning environment, our buildings, better for our kids.
So a couple responses. So first off, and I had to pull up my calendar to look at this. So on May 27th at 2 o'clock, Ms. Cavato and I both have a meeting with somebody that runs Panorama, which is actually a social emotional program that, you know, Jamie being over our title programs, one of the resources that we can spend title money on is social emotional learning and supporting of students. So her and I were actually looking for some things that we could put in place for our middle school and high school students. This is a K-12 program that she kind of talked with us about, and so I said I want to learn more about it. So we actually are meeting with them to talk about what does this entail, you know, what is the student aspect of it, what's the teacher aspect of it. And then another thing is, at the middle school and high school level, we do student surveys, just kind of to see, you know, how was your year, what would you want to improve on, you know, just general things. We don't really get down to the social emotional piece of that, but I think that would be something that we could easily tweak. So maybe we'll find something out of this meeting that her and I are going to be attending to see if that's something that, you know, we could even discuss, if it'll even meet our needs. I'm not sure, but you know, we have a lot of good things out there, and I think it's just kind of hodgepodge, right? Teachers and educators are great at, oh my gosh, I see a need, let's do this, right? And so we put all of these things in place, and this might just be a great way for us to culminate all of that into one place. And then our resource officers, I agree 100%. If you watch them at lunchtime per se, and you see them interacting with students, I think that's where that starts with our resource officers, is building those relationships with those students so that they're comfortable coming to them and seeing them more as, not as the officer and the person that's going to be, putting some kind of punishment on them, but somebody that they can turn to and ask questions of. And I do think that's a great resource that we need to make sure that we're tapping into and using the full potential of that.
Did anybody else have anything?
Just one thing, foundational to the emotional health of any kid, having raised a lot of them at this stage of the game, is making sure that you have a way of building their confidence. And probably fundamental to everything that we do is the more success kids we have with learning, the more confidence they have, and frankly, the better their personal and mental health and emotional health is. Because confidence does a lot with that. So really, in my mind, foundational to everything we do is always focusing on making sure that our kids have success with learning.
So I was speaking with a parent who volunteers for NAMI, and NAMI has a lot of great free resources for families to access on their website. I don't know how much they do for schools, but I know that they do a lot for personal families that don't want to put themselves out there with their problems. And that parent said that she is more than willing to help with anything if you guys want a presentation from NAMI or anything like that. Also, we were looking at CHADS, which has the K through 12, and they build upon their lessons all the way through school. We were also looking at the website, and under the website, I did not see the virtual wellness. It was not that it's difficult to find now that we see it, but we found that social and emotional wellness is under safety and security, and then when you click on that, it's just one white page of things that you, what am I trying to say? It's stale. And I think we need more information there, and it just needs to be done a little differently. I do love what you showed tonight with the wellness center. That is fantastic. Like Judy, I can't wait to go home and check that out and really dive into that and really spotlight that for our district to let other people know that that's out there. I am very interested in looking at the policy that, and changing that in discussion and getting that all moving forward. So thank you for bringing this on the agenda this evening.
Judy, on the policy, is that through MSBA? Are they putting something together, or are we going to have to do something?
I don't know. They probably will because it's on MSEP 6, but we can go ahead and start moving in that direction.
Okay.
And adding mental wellness to our policy. And so I really think that it seems to be a really big concern of parents, and so I do think that we need to have a very special, very easily located place on our website that really gives parents an easy way to find things, because a lot of them don't want to share everything, and they do want to find ways to solve issues that they have in their home. And Michelle talks all the time about that she wasn't the brightest bulb in the box, and I used to always, I used to always tell my students, parents, when I was teaching, and I tell my college students, there were always the red birds, the blue birds, the yellow birds, and there were the dumb birds. And I was in the dumb birds. And I couldn't read, and nobody really ever taught me phonics and taught me how to read. But that just goes to show that as you go through school, you find those champions that guide you in the right way. And we've both become teachers, and very successful teachers, and so you don't have to live your life in those situations, but every child does need a champion, and whether they find it in the Boy Scouts or the Girl Scouts, or whether they find it in a teacher, in a church group, or whatever it is, however we can help guide parents to find solutions, teachers to find solutions. I know you talked about On the website, you said something about students or staff and students, something being there. Even to have 2 areas, one for adults and one for children, but to really have emotional and social wellness, and then areas for families, for elementary, for secondary. And I want the parents to know that as we move forward, we will be looking into making things available. And it sounds like Dr. Cardona and Jamie Cavato are working on things that are going to be very important for our students and for our teachers. And so as we move forward, we do want to include this. We will be revising the policy as we work through MSIP 6. And so there will be things coming that we hope will be helpful. Mr. Shalhoub?
Just one final question. There was a time that we had a guidance and counseling curriculum where actually the guidance counselors wanting to, still do that? It seems like that curriculum would be an opportunity for us to start building some of these things in that we want to build in.
One real quick thing that I want to mention is, this is one of the reasons why we try to really encourage students to get involved in something in school. When I'm thinking about my own children, when they get involved in band, that's the thing that comes to mind, right? If you watch the band students when they're together, that's their people, that's their family, right? Or when you're talking about a sports team. So, at the secondary level, I think that's a huge piece. It doesn't answer all of the problems that we have, but I think it's the belonging that students need to feel. And, I think we do need to get better at helping students figure out where is that and where is their place in those different things.
Absolutely. And unfortunately, these things right here, I've seen it. These are muzzles for kids, and they can just hide behind them because, if you're shy, you just hide behind your mask and you don't talk. So I've heard a lot in the middle school and high school that the kids aren't saying much because, of these. So hopefully these will come off in the fall.
Anybody
Judy?
else have anything they want to say? Kelly?
I just wanted to add, I know Tammy mentioned a couple of things for staff, like the website and trainings on self-care and things like that. But I want to make sure that people are aware that we also have an employee assistance program, which provides some counseling free of charge to our employees for whether it's, crisis counseling or grief counseling or just mental health issues in general that is available to our employees as well.
That's great. I think there's a lot of things there. People just don't know where to find them and how to access them. And so I think we just need to find a way, a platform to get that information out there.
Right, and lastly, you mentioned the MSBA policy, Crystal. I know that they're working on an update, and I've received information about part of that so far, so I'll follow up with them and find out if they have proposed language already for that, and we just haven't received it yet.
Great. Anybody else want to say anything? Because we are going to move on. 5.1, MSBA Full Maintenance Service Agreement. Who's in charge of that? That's what it says, but. Okay, I just need a motion to approve the yearly agreement with MSBA.
So move.
And a second? All in favor?
Yes.
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 Any opposed? Okay, moving on. 5.2, 2001-2002 Fox C-6 tuition rates. Motion to approve the non-resident property owner's tuition rate of $4,752.35 and the non-resident tuition rate of $9,556.93 for the 2021-2022 school year. Mr. Stewart, did you want to say anything about that?
Only that this is required to set tuition rates and just set a tuition rate, but also then set a rate that takes into account non-resident property owners.
Okay.
I make a motion.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay. 5.3, banking service bids. Mr. Stewart.
Yes, so we issued an RFP for banking services. as we're required to do every so often. We issued this for a 1-year agreement with 4 one-year options at the district's option. And so we actually sent it to 5 different banks. I had 2 that said declined to bid, 2 that submitted a qualifying bid, and 1 whose bid was incomplete. So you see that through the analysis, the waiver of fees for the first year as proposed by J.P. Morgan Chase, as well as supplying $9,000 worth of check scanning equipment at no charge. Also, no TAN fees. So if you'll recall, last year we had some substantial fees for our TAN. So the only fees we would be required to pay would be our own legal fees through bond counsel, which I think this last year was about $5,000. Also, being able to pass through our courier fees to our analysis statement. And you will also see at the bottom of that analysis page the proposed rate over those sample months for calculation of interest were substantially higher than the other proposers. So it is my recommendation to approve the bid from J.P. Morgan Chase for banking services.
Anybody have any questions?
Is there any advantage of the bank having a local branch here close to us?
So historically, I would say yes, absolutely. That is one area where J.P. Morgan Chase falls under, below the other proposer, UMB. J.P. Morgan Chase's closest branch is in Kirkwood, 14 miles away. However, with the ability to use these check scanners, that reduces having to go to the bank to deposit checks, because that's all done electronically through scanners. The only time we would have to go to the bank is whenever we have cash. That cash gets gathered throughout the district via courier, brought to the central office, and then we could have a courier service that would take that once or twice a week, and we could adjust that as needed depending on the volume, but take that cash once or twice a week to the bank. And so that pretty much eliminates the need to have, previously, is very important to have a local branch. I think it's less so, especially when you're looking at post-pandemic.
What would the what will the courier service cost us over the course of a year?
So the courier service, we reached out to touch base with several different services, and it's going to cost anywhere from $1,000 to $2,500 annually. And so if you look at the differential in the fees of $30,000 that we're going to be saving, it would take several years, a couple decades to recoup that differential.
Anybody have any other questions? Okay, I need a motion to approve the proposal from J.P. Morgan Chase Bank to provide banking services for 1 year with 4 one-year options to renew at the district's choice.
I make a motion.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
5.4, food service supplement staffing. Dr. Brocht.
We are requesting the board's approval for the attached contract with Chartwells to provide supplemental staffing for our food service department. This is purely supplemental. It is not to take the place of any of our staff at all. They will cover absences that we are unable to cover, or if we have positions that are posted but not filled yet, they'll fill in for us so that we can be fully staffed in that department.
Kelly, is it typical for us to do some kind of a contract like this year for summer school?
No, and this is not just for summer school. I just anticipate that we will need it beginning with summer school.
Kelly, is this the first time we've had to do something like this?
It's the first time that any place has even been willing to consider something like this. It's similar to what we've put in place with Kelly Services to help with our subs, or with ABCO to help with our custodians. And all of those are things that just didn't really exist before the pandemic. And now all those companies are a lot more flexible than they used to be.
So this will carry over into next, summer school plus it'll carry
Plus
over into
next-
next year.
Right, plus next school year.
Any other questions? Okay, we need a motion to approve the attached supplemental food service staffing agreement with Chartwells. Second?
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay, that passes. 5.5, the Math Learning Center for Number Corner Supplement Math Materials. Mr. Fitzpatrick.
We're asking the board to approve an agreement for a deferred payment with the Math Learning Center for Number Corner, the supplemental math materials, to be paid on July 1st of 2022 from the 2022-23 curriculum budget. During the K-5 math materials review process that I talked about earlier this evening, the kindergarten through third grade teachers proposed piloting a supplemental resource called Number Corner. The resource is from the Math Learning Center, the publisher Bridges Mathematics, and provides daily calendar time activities that focus on number sense and fact fluency. The cost to equip one K through classroom per grade level per building with the resource is at $930 per classroom, which is what adds up to the $40,924. There is no reoccurring cost for this, so we look at this, we budget this like it's a 6-year adoption, and when you spread that cost out over 6 years, it's a very efficient use of math resources money, and we're asking for the approval of the deferred payment.
So I would assume that this is intended to target a couple of those areas that we showed weakness in?
Yes, absolutely. Our number one need was something that would focus on number sense, and the teachers really liked the number sense and the repeated aspect of the number sense components built into Number Corner and calendar activities.
Anybody have any other questions? Okay, we needed a motion to approve the deferred payment agreement with the Math Learning Center for Number Corner Supplement Math Materials for $40,924.20 to be paid on July 1st, 2022 from the 2022-23 curriculum budget.
So move.
That was Hargis. And all in favor?
Yes.
Any
Yes.
opposed? Okay, moving on
Thank
to donations. Dr. Patel.
Yes, we are asking the board for a motion to approve a donation of the amount of $500 to Antonia Middle School.
All in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay. 6.2, payment of bills, Group A. Mr. Stewart.
You have before you the list of bills to be paid as part of Group A, and I would just ask for your approval.
Motion to approve Group A bills is presented.
I'll make a motion.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Okay. And we come to consent agenda. 7.1, consent agenda, item approval for 7.2 through 7.5. Dr. Brott.
Yes, we're requesting your approval for all attached hires, separations, stipends, and modifications.
Anybody have any questions? Okay, we need a motion to approve consent agenda items 7.2 through 7.5.
Second.
All in favor?
Yes.
Yes.
All opposed? All right. I'd just like to once again thank all of the teachers, all of the staff, everybody that influences the students in this district in any way for all you've done this year. There's only one more week of school after this week. Looking forward to graduation and the excitement, and I want to congratulate all the seniors who are graduating and getting ready to move on to other areas of their life. And so I'll see you on June 15th.
You need to adjourn.
Oh.